Ponytails. Read by Scribbler. Sugar Cubed by Blazing Inferno.
What's Pa doing out there?
The view from the little filly's bedroom window made no sense. Pa was standing in front of an apple tree without a barrel, a rake, or even a watering can. He just stared at the tree without bothering to buck the glistening red apples off the branches. For minutes on end he'd stand there, only pausing on occasion to glance at a small book resting on his hoof. There was barely enough sunlight out there to work in, let alone read by. No pony else would be up for half an hour. Her hoofsteps were nearly silent as she crossed the hallway. If she woke up Ma or Granny Smith this early, she'd never hear the end of it. Her big brother was a different story. She pushed open his door and approached the bed.
Hey, Big Mac!
The sleeping form under the covers didn't move.
Big Mac!
Finally he stirred.
Uh-huh. AJ?
Pa's doing something outside. Looks mighty strange to me.
Pa's just being Pa. And you're supposed to be in bed. Sun's not up yet.
But...
Nope.
Nope.
She scowled.
Fine.
Her hoofsteps were equally noiseless as she made her way down the stairs, including the hop at the end to skip the creaky step. She couldn't count the times Big Mac had put his full weight on the thing after being out late with his friends. Even if the groaning wood didn't wake her up, the inevitable scolding from Ma certainly would. Soon she was standing outside and at the edge of the orchard. She crouched behind a tree trunk and watched Pa continue his strange ritual. He studied the nearest tree, once again without bucking even a single apple, and then consulted with his little book. From this perspective she could see the pencil he was holding in his mouth. Pa was the biggest stallion her young eyes had ever seen. The first time she saw him knock an apple out of a tree, she'd been sure the tree trunk would be the next thing to hit the ground. Seeing him standing here, still and silent with a book on his hoof, was like looking at another pony entirely.
You gonna hide back there all morning, AJ?
His voice was as deep as rolling thunder. She froze. Did he know she was there, or just suspect? Could she just take a few careful steps back and pretend she'd never left her room? It wasn't worth trying, not when it meant lying to Pa. Instead, she stepped out of her hiding place and hung her head.
Sorry, Pa. I know I'm not supposed to be out this early. I just wanted to see what you were doing.
He rolled the pencil between his lips.
What do you think I'm doing?
Can't say. You've just been staring at those trees and reading. Only, why would you ever write in a book? Wouldn't that ruin it?
Why don't you come over here, and I'll show you.
To her surprise, the only text in the book was hoof-written, and most of it was numbers.
What is this?
Just take a look at this tree. Tell me how many apples there are.
One glance at the tree was all she needed.
10.
Right, and here's the 10 in my book.
She followed his gaze down the column of numbers until she found a freshly drawn 1 and 0.
So you're counting all the apples?
Kinda, but there's more to it than that. See, I've got a number for how many apples each tree produces for 9 on 30 years. Same goes for the day they started producing, when they stopped, when the rainy season was...
But why?
He flipped the pages until they reached the end.
Know how the Pegasus gives us a weather forecast?
You mean like when they're gonna make it rain?
Right. Well, with these numbers, I can give you an apple forecast.
That's just crazy talk. How can any pony know how many apples they're gonna be in advance?
He tousled her mane.
Oh, it's not easy, sugar, but it's not crazy either. You just gotta track everything a tree cares about for enough seasons, then...
57.
Pardon?
She pointed to the last column on the page where he'd added up the crop yields for the last few trees.
You should have written 57 there, not 63.
He rolled the pencil between his teeth while he redid the sum.
Well, I'll be your right. You learning arithmetic in school this year?
Yep. Teacher says I'm top of the class when it comes to math. Don't know why the other fillies have so much trouble with it. It's just numbers.
You don't say. Do you know why you're not allowed up so early?
She frowned and hung her head again.
I'll be too tired for all my chores after school.
Right again. So, how about we change things just a bit?
How do you mean?
Well, change the chores you need to do. How'd you like to get up bright and early with me and count apples? You can make sure I get my sums right. And I'll tell you all about statistics and apple forecasts.
Her leap of joy nearly brought her eye level with him.
You mean it, Pa? Just you and me?
He grinned.
Just you and me.
Sounds great. Only, what's statistics mean?
We'll get to that in due time, sugar. We'll get to that.
Twilight couldn't help but smile. She was standing in Ponyville Town Hall with no less than 50 other ponies. For the Ponyville chapter of the Equestrian Math Club, 50 ponies was a gathering of epic proportions. Normally, 5 or 6 of them would squeeze into a member's house for the monthly meeting, but not today. The banner hanging over the stage only made her smile broaden. 144th Annual Competition, Regional Judging. Her hooves guided her closer and closer to the hallowed podium where the winner would be announced. She'd seen this spectacle every year since she joined the club as a filly, and never tired of it. Winning in this contest demanded the very best research papers and theories, and the ponies who dared to enter never failed to rise to the challenge. A solid bump against another pony brought her immediate surroundings back into focus.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see...
The pony she'd bumped into pushed her Stetson out of her eyes.
No problem. I was...
Applejack?
Applejack cringed.
Hi, Twilight.
What are you doing here?
Doing where?
Twilight looked over their surroundings.
At the Equestrian Math Club. I didn't expect to see any of my friends here for the...
Her face lit up.
Are you a member too? Why didn't you ever come to our meetings?
Applejack's eyes darted around, and she started backing away.
Math club? You don't say. Guess I must be in the wrong place. Yep. Best be going back to the farm. Lots of chores to do.
Wait, what?
Yep. I couldn't possibly be in the right place. What with this being a math competition and all?
Twilight darted forward and locked eyes with her.
The prime factors of 42 are 2, 3, and...
Applejack smirked.
7, of course.
Her breath caught in her throat, and her eyes darted back and forth.
Wait, 10. 10.
Aha!
Horse apples.
Twilight threw her hooves in the air.
You are a math enthusiast! This is so great! I never have anyone to go with to these meetings. I can't even get Spike to...
Her enthusiasm drained away when she realized her friend was staring at the floor.
Applejack, what's wrong?
It's nothing. Twilight, why don't you just tell me what I've gotten myself into?
Twilight looked from her friend to the stage.
They're announcing a regional winner for the national competition today. I'm so glad they're doing it in Ponyville. It's brought members from all over.
Applejack looked over the crowd and took a few steps back.
Might be busy in here. Maybe I should go.
Applejack, are you... nervous?
She pulled off her Stetson and fanned herself with it.
A bit.
Why?
I entered the competition.
Twilight's jaw dropped.
You submitted a research paper? What's it about?
Oh, just a little something I've been working on. Nothing special.
I'm sure it's special, Applejack. I can't wait to see it.
Applejack found a nearby chair and sat down.
So, you come to these meetings often?
Every month. Normally there's just a few of us. We discuss our new findings, read the minutes from last time, send out the newsletter and minutes to the... That's why I never see you at the meetings. You just read the letters we send out to all the local members.
She nodded.
Guilty as charged.
But I sent out those letters myself. There's no Sweet Apple Acres in the membership address list, and no Applejack.
I rent a box at the post office under the name SC.
SC?
She managed a grin.
Sugar cubed.
Twilight resisted the urge to cheer.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here! I finally have a close friend to talk math with.
About that. I'm not sure I want this getting around.
That you're in this club?
That I'm into math at all. Most ponies just think I'm a farm hoof, and that's how I like it.
But why? What's so wrong about celebrating your talents and interests?
Applejack twisted her hat in her hooves.
Nothing. I suppose that's why I entered the contest this year. It's just...
A pony in a suit walked across the stage and tapped his hoof on the microphone.
Good afternoon, every pony, and welcome to the regional judging round of the Equestrian Math Club's annual contest. We'll be announcing the winners in just a few minutes. All contestants are encouraged to sit in the first 2 rows so we can all see you.
Twilight pulled Applejack out of her chair.
That's you, SC. Let's get you up to the front.
Now, Twilight.
Oh, come on. Since when does Applejack ever back down from a challenge?
Fine. Let's just get this over with.
The first row was completely packed, and the second wasn't far behind. Once they found a pair of seats, Applejack pulled her hat over her eyes, and Twilight resumed her giddy pony watching.
Oh, there's Double Factorial. He's the chair pony of the math department at Canterlot University. I heard he's one of the judges this year. I should introduce you after this is over.
Applejack's head sank even deeper into her hat.
Cool it, Twi. I'm perfectly fine keeping a low...
A deep blue hoof clad in a silver shoe touched the back of Twilight's chair.
Why, Twilight Sparkle, are you here to compete against me, Princess of the Night?
Twilight jumped up and then bowed.
Princess Luna? I didn't expect to see you here. Why don't you join us?
Luna smiled and took the seat next to them.
Thank you. My treatise on planetary motion is complete at last, and what better way to share it with ponykind than a friendly competition?
But why here in Ponyville? Why not in the Math Club's Canterlot chapter?
Luna's smile faded.
There has been some unpleasantness between myself and the other members in Canterlot as of late.
Oh no! What happened?
The debate on gravitation at the last meeting became intense, and I might have threatened the chapter president with getting to witness the full lunar cycle in person. I was joking, of course, but apparently princesses should not even jest over such things.
Twilight held back a laugh.
Well, you're more than welcome here.
Luna's smile returned in an instant.
And what did you submit to the contest, Twilight?
Oh, I'm just here to watch. Applejack's the reason we're seated in the second row.
Applejack felt her hat levitate off her head, bringing her nose to nose with Luna.
Howdy, Princess. Come to compete in our little contest?
Indeed I have. It's an honor to engage in an intellectual pursuit with a pony such as yourself, Applejack.
Applejack smiled.
Why, that's awful big of you, Princess. I never thought I'd ever compete hoof to hoof with royalty. You said your entry is about the motion of planets?
Yes, and I could not feel better about my chances. I have raised and lowered the moon for thousands of years, and now I have updated physics itself to properly account for the forces involved. What, pray tell, have you submitted?
Her smile faded.
Well...
Twilight grinned.
You might as well tell us, Applejack. All the entries are published right after the contest anyway.
Applejack sighed.
It's actually about the farm. Or farming in general, I guess. My pa tracked our crop yields his whole life, and I created a statistical model for it. I call it the apple distribution.
Twilight's mouth hung open.
You invented a new statistical model? That's amazing! How come you've never mentioned this before?
It's a bit of a complicated story.
As always, Applejack and Pa were up before the sun. This time, Applejack was the one holding the book on her hoof.
This tree makes 267 apples, right in line with your notes.
Her Pa was a few feet away inspecting a neighboring tree.
Yep, not bad.
Not bad? It's great. Why, I bet next season you'll have the whole harvest predicted down to the barrel. You've got apples figured out.
That might be. Still need to formalize the whole thing.
How do you mean?
Just flip through that book a bit. What do you see?
She knew the answer without touching the pages.
Good notes.
Numbers. Just numbers. See, for this to really fly, we need more than that. We need an equation that tells us all the numbers that we don't have.
How do you mean?
Say one year we had an extra 2 acres of trees that had been given half as much fertilizer. How many apples would we get? Or, what if we had 5 days less rain than usual? All those things are just numbers. What we need is an equation to plug them all into to tell us what kind of crop we're looking at. When we can do that, when we can say right at planting time how many barrels we're expecting to harvest, and figure in everything that happens in between, then we'll have apples figured out skin to core.
A little early for your numbers, isn't it, Apple?
Another stallion's voice called out across the fields.
Run along, Sugar Cube.
But, Paul...
Run along.
Applejack passed him the book and took off into the trees. After running for a few minutes, she found a good hiding spot and held her ears up high. The still morning air carried voices further than most ponies would guess, especially a deep one like Pa's.
And how I run my farm isn't any concern of yours.
Hey, it ain't. All your talk about seeing the future ain't doing any of us a lick of good. Your family included. You need to quit stealing our business with these lies, Apple.
It's not lies, Carrot, and I don't see the future. It's some calculations I've been doing.
It's a sham, and it's gonna stop right now. I know you've been stealing our fertilizer for your own crops. That's the only explanation. Why, my bean crop's been so bad this year, I wouldn't be surprised if you went and salted the ground, too. You're nothing but a thief and a liar.
This is my farm we're standing on. And if you think you can come over here...
Maybe it's time the boys and me teach you a thing or two.
Applejack raced back to find Pa rubbing his side while one of the carrots brandished a hoof.
You leave my paw alone!
Before any of the adults could react, she spun around and bucked Pa's attacker square in the jaw. A tooth flew out of his mouth and nearly caught one of his brothers in the eye. She shouted as loud as she could just to hide the quiver in her voice.
And if you ever come back again, I'll...
She couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes or the shiver in her legs.
That's enough, Applejack.
Her Pa's stern voice froze her in place.
But, Pa...
You've done plenty already. This is a little discussion between adults. No need to get all worked up over it.
The oldest carrot brother pushed her aside.
A little worked up? You gonna stand for this?
He parted his lips to show off the new gap in his teeth.
Why, if my little golden harvest ever would...
Pa was standing on 3 hooves in an instant. The 4th was busy pinning the other pony to the ground. Applejack's gentle giant of a Pa had been replaced with a monster, fiercer than a timber wolf and twice as big.
I do intend to stand for it. And if you so much as say a word, I'll be planting a full set of teeth instead of seeds this year. We clear?
The remaining carrots backed away.
Whatever you say, Apple.
Pa nodded.
Now get off my farm.
Applejack's tears wetted the ground while the bullies ran for it.
Pa, I'm sorry.
It's all right, Sugar Cube. Old Carrot had it coming, even if it should have been for me.
He chuckled.
In a year or two, you're going to be as good an apple bucker as Big Mac.
She wiped her nose with her hoof.
But why'd they run off all of a sudden?
He stepped to the side of the tree and retrieved the records book. One of the edges was wet with mud.
It's a mite bit complicated.
They called you a liar and a thief. Why didn't you just make them leave right off? Why let them call you that?
Sugar, I let them. It wouldn't be the first time either.
She gasped.
But why?
He brushed off the book and handed it to her.
Figuring out apples isn't an easy thing, Sugar Cube. Same goes for ponies. Some love you for your talent, some don't.
But the carrots, they
don't understand how we've increased our apple yield season after season, and it bothers them to no end. Bothers them so much that every once in a while they gotta come over here and give me some hay about it. They burn off a little steam, and then we all get back to work. Never got physical before. Never figured the carrot boys were fool enough to take a swing at me. I don't know how I'm going to explain this to your ma.
They both looked at the bruise forming on his side. She started crying again.
It's still ain't right.
His hoof touched her chin, raising her gaze up to meet his.
Hey now, bruises aren't nothing to worry about.
But...
His hoof tapped her forehead next.
It's what's in here that counts. Even if no pony ever knows it's there but you. It's what's in here that's going to take you places. Why, by the time you reach my age, you'll probably have some fancy degree and a whole lot better things to do than count apples with your old paw.
She wrapped her hoof around his leg.
Never, Pa. Fancy your math or not, I'll always count apples with you.
He coughed twice. The force of it shook them both.
We should get inside.
You okay, Pa?
He coughed again and nodded.
I'll be fine. Just go on in and tell Ma I fell off the ladder to the hayloft.
Double Factorial stood at the podium.
And the regional winner of the 144th Annual Math Competition of the Equestrian Math Club, who will progress to the final round, is...
A hush fell over the audience.
Maud Pye, for her unprecedented solution to Fermat's last theorem.
The cheers that erupted through the crowd were mixed with gasps. Twilight and Luna stared at each other. Luna pointed at the stage.
Did he say?
Fermat's last theorem? That problem's been unsolved for
2,000 years.
Double Factorial tapped on the microphone again.
Care to come up and share a few words, Maud? Perhaps a preview of your formal proof.
The crowd fell silent again as Maud left the first row and stepped up onto the stage. When she reached the microphone, she stared out at the crowd with a perfectly stone-faced expression.
I work on a rock farm. Last month when I was rotating granite in the south field, I accidentally found a link between elliptic curves and modular forms, two previously unrelated branches of mathematics. A proof to Fermat's theorem was the inevitable consequence. I don't yet know how this will apply to my larger body of work in geology.
Her emotionless stare was met with slowly growing applause. By the time Double Factorial had resumed his position at the microphone, the crowd seemed to have regained its full enthusiasm. He tapped on the microphone once more.
On behalf of myself and the other judges, I'd like to thank all of you who put so much time and effort into advancing not only mathematics, but the pony way of life that's increasingly dependent on it. Advance copies of all the contest entries, including Maud's groundbreaking work, are available at
Twilight's focus on the stage broke when she heard her friend sniffling.
Applejack, what's wrong?
It's nothing, Twi. Just let me be. I should have never come here.
Ponies left their seats as Double Factorial adjourned the meeting. Applejack stayed seated, and Twilight didn't leave her side.
Applejack, you've been acting weird ever since I ran into you. I'm your friend. Please tell me what's wrong.
Applejack pulled off her hat and wiped it across her tear-streaked face.
I know it's silly, but part of me actually thought I'd win this thing. Not for me, but for my dad. These numbers, this math was his life. And because of him, it's been a part of mine, too. He smiled through things that would have plumb set me over the edge. He lived his whole life on the farm without any special schooling for his talents. And after he and Mom... after they were gone, I did just the same. I never told any pony because... well, I don't rightly know anymore. Just fillyhood fears about how I'd get treated.
Twilight stared at the floor.
Applejack, I can't imagine what you've gone through. I'm so sorry if I made it worse.
Applejack wiped her eyes one more time and returned the now damp hat to her head.
It's not on you, Twi. It's me. I passed up college, stallions, and plenty more to keep the family together and the farm alive. Pa deserves some recognition for all he did. And some fool part of me thought I could give it to him.
Excuse me, Miss Applejack?
She and Twilight looked up to see Luna and Double Factorial standing in front of them. She blinked away the last few tears.
Yes?
Princess Luna here tells me that you're the author of the apple distribution. You're SC.
That's right. Doesn't quite measure up to cracking some 2,000-year-old puzzle, I guess.
Yes, well, I dare say Miss Pye's talents are something else entirely. But I came over here to discuss your work.
What about it?
He adjusted the glasses perched on his nose.
Well, how do I put it? This contest only bothers with first place. If we were a tad more broad in our recognition, you could have easily captured third, or even second. No offense intended, Princess Luna.
Luna rolled her eyes and sighed.
None taken. Please continue.
I suppose what I mean to say is, this contest highlights one big flashy contribution to a field of study that most ponies consider boring. Maud's proof will make headlines, but your work has a chance of bettering our way of life. That's why I started in this field, and I'm sure many would say the same. I'd like to shake your hoof and say I look forward to whatever you decide to work on next. Where did you receive your degree?
She opened her mouth, but didn't speak for a moment.
That's some high praise for a farmer like me. I don't have any degree, unless you count bucking apples.
His eyebrows shot up, which prompted him to adjust his glasses again.
You mean to say you have no advanced mathematical education? That with no formal training you... My word. Would you be interested in a scholarship? I'll have my secretary draw up the paperwork and send it by mail. Please do consider it.
She looked just as surprised as he did.
Scholarship? You'd admit an old farm hoof like me to...
Excuse me.
Maud was standing on the other side of Luna, still bearing the same emotionless expression. Luna smiled.
Oh, sorry. I meant her.
Applejack stared at the hoof pointing at her.
I read all of them. I singled you out through process of elimination. Yours was my favorite.
You read my whole paper? Just now? But you won, Maud. You won Hooves Down.
Your discovery might actually be applicable to my field. I'd like to try your distribution against my work in rock farming.
Applejack matched her blank stare.
Can't really say that apples and rocks have that much in common. But suit yourself, I guess.
Maud nodded.
I'll keep you apprised of my findings.
As Maud walked away, Luna gave her a withering glare.
I have been doing vector calculus since her precious rocks were formed from dust. Whatever happened to all the theorists and astronomers?
Twilight put a hoof around her friend.
I think you just won your dad some pretty big recognition, Applejack. A chair pony from the biggest university in Equestria. And, well, Maud's going to be in history books.
Applejack gave a tiny nod. A hint of a smile was forming on her face.
I guess I did. Thanks, Twi. I wouldn't have been able to see this through without a good friend like you by my side.
Twilight pulled her into a hug.
Anytime, Applejack. I can't wait to see what you work on next.
Next?
I doubt your dad wanted you to stop after just one paper. I'm sure he would have wanted you to pursue your talents and be happy.
Applejack took a deep breath and stood.
You're right. And I'm never going to be happy if I keep this up.
Huh?
The apple distribution was his work, Twilight. I just put the final touches on what he wasn't around to finish. I'm glad I did it. But it's high time I moved on to some research of my own.
That's great! What are you going to study?
She shrugged and smiled big.
Don't quite know yet. Give me a lifetime. I'll think of something. Just make sure you save me a spot at the next club meeting.
I've been sleeping with the lights on, buried in regrets, breaking into sweats, naked as a falling leaf. Well, it's a natural reaction, driven to distraction, clawing at the ghost I'll never meet. Oh, and I don't know where they go when they vanish in the corners of my eyes. And I don't know why, I don't know if they stay below or rise up to the sky. But I'm letting go, I'm letting go. It's a history that never really grows. I'm letting go, I'm letting go. It's a silent wind that never really blows. I'm letting go. I'm a slave without a master, heading for disaster, kicking up the dust in the middle of the road. I've been waiting on a free ride, ticket to a seaside thicket on the edge of Puget Sound. And there I'll sit, and I'll admit that I was only just a guest inside my skin. And by the dawn, I'll be gone and won't be holding on to anything again. I'm letting go,